Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with George Bandarian. He knows everything that you want to know about AI. Has been in the field for many years. He is a VC. He's got a company that is also helping other companies to implement AI. And that's going to be a fascinating conversation with George Bandarian. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. Today, I have the great pleasure to speak with one of the authorities in AI. He has had companies. He's also now helping people implement AI. He's a VC. Is extremely knowledgeable. Is in different communities that are thinking about the future. He's an entrepreneur. It's absolutely amazing to see what he's done in his life and where he is now, and be ready to be very surprised with all the things you can do with AI. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only George Bandarian. George, so good to see you today.
You too, pal. Great to be here, Eric. And thank you for that intro.
I had the great pleasure of listening to you at a conference of EO called My EO Deal Exchange. And I was blown away by your presentation, how you've been using already AI to prepare that presentation, but also what's happening in our world and how we can use it. But before we get into that, as I always like to ask my guest, what is your journey?
My entrepreneurial journey, my life journey.
Yes, sir. Whatever you want to talk about.
My enlightenment journey.
Your what? Sorry?
My enlightenment journey.
All of this.
All right. Well, we can touch on all of it. So I guess, born and raised in Los Angeles, LA. And so I went to school here. And shortly after I graduated, I went to USC. I picked up a book by Ray Kurzweil called The Age of Spiritual Machines. And this is back in the early 2000s during the dot-com era. And, when the internet was exploding onto the scene, here is this futurist, this expert writing about how we're going to start building machines that are going to become very intelligent, more intelligent than us, maybe have spiritual likeness or seem spiritual at some point, that they're just going to become unbelievably different than what we've thought of as computers. So that really fascinated me, that concept, as scary as that may be. So, I ended up starting a company. We're in the document management and workflow automation space. So we worked with businesses and we leveraged AI, specifically computer vision and OCR, to help companies really get rid of paper and automate different workflows. But after some time, I felt like there's more to life. I wanted to have more impact. I was able to sell that company and kind of get back to my passion around two things. One is VC and venture-backed startups that have the potential of, getting big and having a lot of impact globally, like the ones that we're all familiar with, your, Facebook, Amazon, Tesla, Apple's, Salesforce, those kinds of companies. But specifically with the focus on emerging technologies and specifically AI. So that's how I landed at this place of launching a venture fund, Untapped Ventures. And Untapped is all about helping humanity reach its untapped potential. So, in my enlightenment journey, because after my exit, I took a lot of time to do the hard work, the hard purpose work, and ask myself the different purpose questions. And if you want, we could talk about that process a little later, because I love doing that with people. But my answer was, I got really clear that I'm a self-development guy. I'm a big Tony Robbins guy. Tony does it through speaking and books and workshops. I wanted to do it through investing in positive impact venture-backed companies that are going to, create amazing products that are going to help people. And so that's what Untapped Ventures is. We invest in early stage AI startups that uplift humanity. Kind of pause there.
Yeah, it's a big pause, but I had the question in mind when I was listening to you. When you say you started your alignment journey after doing your exit, tell us a little bit about your state of mind at that moment. Because what I've heard, everyone that went through an exit, is that there's a moment where you basically should be happy, celebrate everything, where actually there's a lack of purpose or there's some state of depression or which seems insane to people that have not gone through that process.
Right.
So what happened to you and how did you start with this alignment journey?
Yeah. So I'm a little crazy in that sense. So I refer to that as the post-exit identity crisis. And I think that happens for a lot of entrepreneurs, like you said, is they sell their company. And then because their whole identity, a large part of their identity was wrapped up in this company, which was like a baby, right? They had it for 10, 20 years, maybe longer than they've had their kids, for example. That's what they spend most of their waking hours doing. And so now all of a sudden, this thing is gone and they don't know who they are. So you see common behaviors. One is they rush to start another company. Some people, like the day they sell, the next day they start another company. Others, get into depression and pick up bad habits, like drinking. And all of that is because they haven't dealt with, figuring out really what they want to do next. Or they jump into just other deals that end up being bad deals, like quickly jumping into a partnership or whatever the case might be. And then I think there's people like that are a little crazy, like me, that, what I did was I took my time and I put myself, because I knew whatever I did, I was probably going to be committing myself for the next 10 plus years. So I wanted to be really thoughtful and methodical. I didn't want to rush into anything. I wanted to take time and explore different areas. And I kind of done this right out of college. I hadn't given myself the chance to really explore. I was kind of locked into this one business that I wasn't that passionate about, certainly for the second part of it. So I did things like, there's books on purpose that I read. I went to Date with Destiny with Tony Robbins. They're a part of Peter Diamandis's Mastermind Abundance 360, and Peter and people from his kind of community have this massively transformative purpose context that helps go through that. So there's lots of different tools for the seeker. And so that's what I did. And that's what helped me get really clear on my massively transformative purpose of helping, hopefully over the coming decades, 1 billion people achieve breakthroughs and live the best version of themselves. And then really the second element of that MTP, or massively transformative purpose, is the moonshot, right? Moonshot being something crazy big that takes 10 years, coming from the original moonshot to get to the moon. And in my case, it was, can I build one of the greatest venture funds, right? And raise multiple funds, a dozen funds, billions of dollars in the coming decades, and make, 1,000 investments that really do impact the lives of a lot of people. I feel more comfortable saying that now. That was big and scary in the beginning. But the beauty about this process is when you're clear on what you think your life purpose is and why you're put here on this earth, and then you start living into it, it becomes easier. And it seems like the universe seems to bring opportunities together. So I'm in the first inning of that journey, but so far so good. We're having fun. And then I love walking people through this process. There's some great questions you can ask and some great exercises you could do that help you get clarity.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. One of the company you invested in, if I'm not mistaken, is transforming the way people eat cheese.
Right.
And I was stunned with it. Just I know that has nothing to do with meetings and events, but it definitely has to do with AI. If you can just talk about it, a few seconds of what it is, how do they use AI, and what is the transformation there?
Yeah, definitely. So just to set some context, because probably people are going to have different levels of experience with AI, right? So AI is very simply artificial intelligence, the technology that does things that we used to think were tasks reserved for just humans, right? And so now that list has grown, but there's different fields in AI, and there's generative AI, which is getting all the buzz with, ChatGPT and all these different tools that allow you to create art, photos, and videos, and content and marketing campaigns. And I'm sure we'll talk about all that a little later. But also, AI is being used in other areas like drug discovery and development, using AI to create new drugs to help us for diseases, material sciences, and creating new and better concrete and wood and foods. And in the example that you talked about is foods. So in this case, the company you're talking about is Climax Foods. And what they've done is they've created an AI model with the 300,000 species of the plant kingdom, understanding all the different attributes. And then they're using AI to then build animal and dairy alternative plant-based products. And they tackled like one of the hardest categories to start with, which is the cheese category. And so they have this blue cheese, a brie, a mozzarella, feta, which are pretty amazing. I have them in the fridge. And what I love about that is, and I think what we're going to see more of is it's not foods people that are starting a food startup and then using some tech and using some AI. It was really AI people that are saying, how can we solve the foods issue? And let's go ahead and build a AI model and do that. So I think that's part of what we're going to see across the board is, smart AI engineers and entrepreneurs are coming together and solving some of the most important global problems using AI.
That's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. You mentioned ChatGPT. Just going on there for a few minutes. If I don't know anything about it and I want to start trying, just discovering and using it, there's ChatGPT, there is Bard now is Gemini, and then you have Grok. What do I use? What is the difference? Or is it all the same and I just pick one?
Yeah, good question. It's a fast moving field, but and I love this topic, especially like for the newbies. So if anybody's listening and you've been hearing it, you haven't done anything, where do I get started? So here's what I would recommend. The first thing is definitely get on ChatGPT. ChatGPT is the leader. So you want to, if you don't have an account, create an account, immediately upgrade to the Plus plan. It's only $20 a month. And then go to your settings and turn on the beta features. So you get the beta features, which is really the cool stuff. And then from there, go in, enable some of the plugins. And so some of you might be taking notes or you might rewind here, but enable some of the plugins. There's Web Pilot, and the Web Pilot is the main one that I would say right now on this podcast. And then there's something called custom instructions, and you want to tell it who you are. So it knows, hey, I'm a meeting and events planner. We're based in, Florida. We work with mid-sized technology companies that are hosting events in Florida or whatever the case is. And you want to tell it that so that every time you chat with it, it has that memory of who you are. And then go ahead and just start using it. The other thing I would recommend is there's a new Explore button on the top left. And so that's where the custom GPTs are. And check out the custom GPTs because you may want to build yourself a new custom GPTs, or that's something we could help with as well, is start thinking about what's a custom GPT you could build for your business that could be helpful for your customers. So what's a custom GPT? It's just basically taking what you might have done manually, a series of prompts that you had, but you couldn't really save that. And it allows you to save it into like a macro. It's like a macro in ChatGPT, but you don't want it to touch everything. You just want it to have your steps for what you want your employees to do for a new event, or your intake form for a customer filling out like on your website, the event they're looking for. Now you could do it with ChatGPT and give them something cool and new and different and with more functionality. So maybe they input the parameters, and then with generative AI, we could like design a space of what it might look like, their event, right? And they're like, wow, no other meeting event planner is doing this for me. Let me now book a call, right? So now is a great time to start experimenting with these tools. So if you were just at step, one, those were some of the things I would do. Don't let that sound overwhelming. You just need to kind of set a couple hours aside and go in there, start playing with it. And the biggest thing is to start, you were talking about the lawnmower rule.
Yeah, for those listening, before we start recording, I said there's a rule in Florida that when we start a recording of a podcast, you have or the lawn mower that is coming, or there is one of this express delivery truck that is ringing just as we were starting.
Yeah. So then my lawnmower came. But yeah. And then the other thing is what I've been saying for a long time is start talking to it like it's the best employee, the best executive you could ever have found and hired. Right. And so talk to it, tell it what you wanted to do. And then just like an employee, you wouldn't expect to just say one little sentence for a big project and they're going to do exactly as you want. Give them more details. When they respond, ask them to confirm. And then, give them some more, give ChatGPT some more follow up and some more instructions. And then what I heard recently is that we kind of have it backwards. It's not like we've hired the smartest employee or executive. It's more like you should work for it. Like pretend like it knows all the right answers. And it's more like it's your board or it's the owner of the company, and then you just ask it what to do. Because if you start with thinking you know the right answer, which sometimes you might, then you tell it what you want it to do. Like, but sometimes, like if you say, write me a marketing campaign that does this, a 7-step email marketing campaign to promote our upcoming trade show, it'll do that. But if instead you said, hey, we're low on registrations for this event, we're trying to figure out what to do, it might ask you some questions. And then it might say, create 5 TikTok videos that can go viral. And it was not at all what you would have done. So now the thinking is elevating to, instead of telling it what to do, give it the objective and then let it tell you what to do. Now, of course, you don't have to do it if you don't think it's right or whatever, but this is what the capability is. We all now have this superpower at our fingertips. And not only can you use it for business, but you use it in your personal life as well, right? And so what I would challenge everybody that's listening to do is, if you feel inspired, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it, have ChatGPT open, and for a week, force yourself that whatever you have to do, whatever task you have to do, as you're going from task to task, whatever the first task is, right? Email, whatever. Look at ChatGPT and say, can I use ChatGPT to do this? And if it was a tough email you were trying to send, that could probably help you. I'm trying to send an email to a vendor who I feel is overcharging us, and I want to negotiate a better price, but I'm not sure how to do it. Boom, it'll help you write that email. It'll give you, some ideas. You might say, give me 3 versions and I'll pick one. So that's one thing you could do. And then, like, a fun little side thing is that what I've started doing with my kids now is, ChatGPT has the mobile app. And on the mobile app, you can enable the voice and you could pick a persona. It's got like 5 or 6 personas. It doesn't really matter which one you pick. But now we use that. So we don't, the whole home conversations that we have with Alexa, and it feels like Alexa's gotten like older, like she's kind of become a grandma. She doesn't really listen that well. Her answers are off. Have you noticed that, Eric? Is your Alexa?
I was just laughing when you say Alexa, I feel like a grandma. I mean, things are going so fast. It's insane.
Yeah, exactly. So Alexa's a grandma. Like, I think Siri's a grandma, right? It doesn't work that well. But the ChatGPT ones are pretty cool. And so I use that with my boys. We do everything from the silly stuff, like who would win, a lion or a tiger, to the very specific stuff. And I think in general, this idea that you won't be able to do all your tasks using ChatGPT, but I was just trying to create a nice training and onboarding for that first week so that it becomes habit. So you could see the power of it and start using it. But definitely an area where it is going to be more helpful is anytime you go to Google search. So anytime you go to Google, instead of doing that, say, I'm going to not do this Google search because I don't want to get, the 10 blue links and all the ads. I don't want to read somebody's blog post and their perspective. I don't want to search. When I'm searching, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to get an answer, right? And that's what these AI systems are best at, is they'll just give you the answer. So, if we want to get the answer to, a rule in Monopoly, right? If I search Google, then I have to kind of find it. If I just go to ChatGPT, I can just get the answer. Now, the next phase that we're going to enter in 2024 is we're moving from search to answer to action. All right. So it's not, in the Monopoly analogy, that wouldn't apply. But if I was doing a search on Hawaii and I was like, hey, what's the best island to go to in Hawaii in May? In Google, it's going to give me a bunch of ads, a bunch of like people's perspectives. I have to go through reviews, right? In ChatGPT, it'll just give me the answer. Here are the islands. Here's what their weather is in May. Here's the one that's probably going to be the best if you're planning. Well, the next step is, why was I doing that? I wasn't just doing that for kicks. I'm probably thinking about taking a vacation there. And so that's the action. So I say, find what's the best island to go to in Hawaii in May, find reservations, book me a room any, 7 days within that week. And then my AI agent is just going to be able to do that for me. Guess what? We're talking to the travel and meetings and event space. So the agents are going to be a big thing. And I would start paying attention to that. And the one use case that everybody talks about when it comes to agents is these travel scenarios, like any of these things that require booking and stuff like that. So I would start looking into that ASAP.
So if I'm planning meetings and I have 50 meetings coming up in the future from 100 people to 10,000 people, then I'm going to be able to use AI somehow.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could have like, you could probably use it today just, for the how to assemble the meeting space and get design ideas, right? You could feed it some source info, some images, and you could use like ChatGPT and Dolly to, have a representation like,
Hmm.
here is the actual hotel room. Show me a ultra modern setup for this tech client, or show me. So you can use it like that to get some inspiration ideas that are very custom and very specific, right off the bat. You could use it to kind of, maybe you have 12 boots and you want to, how do I, or maybe you have 200 boots and how do I lay out the space? So all these things are becoming really, it's impressive what it could do with a single prompt. And as we go into 2024, the big word's going to be multimodal. So the whole idea that I could start with any input and get out any input. So, we think of OpenAI as a chatbot. I'm chatting text with it. It gives me text out, but already it can give me images out. It can give me slides, presentation deck. It can give me data, graphs, charts. But then there's, other tools, and what Google showed in their Gemini release was the multimodal, where I'm holding a picture up to it of a rubber ducky and it's identifying it. They're doing demos where I might like sketch out a software and then hold that paper sketch up and it says, oh, okay, so you're trying to build an e-commerce site for, it looks like bikes, and then it just goes ahead, then it creates it, and then you could, with a couple clicks, you could publish that, and now you have like a little e-commerce site to sell bikes, for example. And it all started
Wow.
with drawing it, and then it sees that from the webcam and then creates it because it understands what you're trying to do. So this is where we're going. I mean, obviously everybody has to be paying attention, and meeting and events businesses are no different.
That's wow. No, I've heard many times when, for instance, when you had the football game that were going to be broadcast, people said, "Oh, they're not going to come to the stadium anymore." Well, at the contrary, more people wanted to come. Then you had the internet. Oh my God, it's going to kill so many jobs, and obviously we have the same thing now with AI. What is
Eric,
your
the
take
funny
on
thing
that?
is there's been study done on this. That's happened for every technological breakthrough, for, light, I'm sure it even happened with, fire and the wheel,
Yeah,
because I think the initial reactions as humans is to get scared, and you can't see what you can't see. And I think people just get scared. They look at the jobs that are going to be lost. They look at how it's going to be a little different. But ultimately, they're tools. They're tools that we're inventing throughout our human evolution, that we're inventing it to help us. Can fire be used in bad ways? Yeah, arson, right? Can wheels be
it can
used in
warm as
bad
well,
ways? What's that?
but it can be warming a place as well.
Yeah, exactly. So will there be some bad uses of AI? I'm sure there will be, but there was bad uses of crypto. There was bad uses of
Mm,
SaaS. Yeah, I mean, so I don't think that's the point. The point is that we're building a tool that will probably go down as being, I mean, not our most powerful tool ever in the future. I'm sure, who knows what we'll do after AI. I can't see that far, but all I
mm,
know is it is and will be the biggest tool for the next 25 years as we reach
absolutely.
artificial general intelligence and then the singularity. And
Yeah.
those are all, these are not our kids' time. This is our time. This is, in 10 years, we'll, AGI, 20 years, singularity, and we can talk about what that means. But yeah, so
Yeah.
I think the time is now, in 2024, for people to, if they haven't already, make AI a strategic priority. If it's not, I would make it one of your top 5, top 3 company priorities to invest in AI, to start experimenting with AI, and take it seriously because your competitors are, right?
And to your point, and that's also something that I always try to help the people. I'm helping business owners in the meetings and event industry to grow and run their business. And one of the aspect is, how do you differentiate yourself and position yourself towards in comparison with the competition? And one of the easiest way is to, instead of going there just for logistics, it's to be the perceived and concretely give advice and great question to your customer, to be perceived as a strategic partner. And that means changing a mindset. That means starting to do to ask different questions. But also, it means that when you do that, this is not something that you can use AI to help you do that, but it's not something that can be replaced easily. And that's more into the relationship with your customer and the type of question you're asking, but then also how you're advising them, how they see you, not only to help do the logistics, but also getting into why they're doing a meeting and how is it impacting their business. Now, just a tactical question, if we can come back to it, between ChatGPT, Bard from Google, Grok with X, is it the same, or is maybe Bard biased towards Google? Is Grok biased towards X? What is your take on that?
Yeah, so I think with Grok, and so Grok is the one by Elon. It's still in the early days, so we'll see how things shake out, but you can never underestimate Elon. The Gemini, so Bard was replaced by Gemini from Google, and they did their big demo. They got some heat for it because that demo was faked in part. There was a lot of post-production, and so you don't expect someone like Google to do something like that, even though many times they're staged. But it seems like it was exposed that it was overly staged and kind of faked. And so, but I think Google's going to be a player. And the one that's really been making a splash has been Meta, because Meta created Llama, the models, and open sourced it. And like basically, whereas everybody's been holding it close to the vest as their IP, Facebook spent hundreds of millions of dollars and then said, okay, here you go, everybody. And like all of a sudden, the whole developer community went to Llama because now you could have access to these amazing models and do stuff with them. So Facebook Meta put itself in the game. Amazon and Microsoft want to have the Azure and AWS. They want to have all the business, so they don't really care who. They just want to be able to support all the AI providers and do the hosting and all the processing that's happening and that's going to continue to grow. But I think if your question is just tactically, I think step one is become a ChatGPT power user, like we talked about earlier in the segment. And then if you're ready to go to the next level, then start playing around with Gemini. I just got an email today that said that they're opening it for public consumption. I don't know if that was just a beta list I was on or the public, but play around with Gemini, get access to Grok. You need to be an X user, paid user on X/Twitter, and then you get access to it. But yeah, so I would say start with ChatGPT and then play around with the tools. There's others too. There is Perplexity. I like Perplexity for much more research-oriented AI work. So, what are the trends in, Texas housing by county, right? And so ChatGPT will tell you, but it won't cite its sources. And there could be some hallucinations in there. Perplexity will first find the sources, and then it will tell you, and it will cite all the sources. So then you could actually click the Fortune article or the whatever MLS article that.
Oh, that's awesome.
All the articles that it used to build this answer for you. There's another one called PI. That one's the empathetic chatbot. So like if you're lonely or like it's basically like a therapist. So try that one out. It'll blow your mind away with how much you feel like you're talking to one of the best humans on the planet, like a very empathetic, loving human, especially if you're going through something. Yeah, so there's different ones out there, but I think so you have to get to know them based on the use case. And hopefully I just gave some examples of when to use which one.
Wow, it's fascinating. You mentioned let's finish this conversation today with a little bit more philosophical part. And I want to hear about singularity as well. But before we get sorry. You mentioned Elon Musk. Recently, I was listening to presentation from Yuval Noah Harari. And he said that every time in the history of mankind, there were discovery, the first reaction of people was resistant to change. No, all the bad things. But at the end of the day, the human was in charge. So, for instance, the example he gave was the nuclear bomb. The nuclear bomb didn't decide on itself to explode or to be dropped somewhere. A human being had to do it. While now, AI could make those decisions. And what do you think of people like Elon Musk, like others that are saying that they're afraid of where it can go, while in the meantime using it, but they're very concerned with some of the aspect of it, and what can be done to prevent that from happening?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, I think in that example, right, the AI was given access to make that decision, that what you're proposing with the nuclear weapon. So that would imply that if that happened, I'm not sure we would ever do that, but if that happened, that would have to be a very specific AI that would have to be, activated or given based on understanding geopolitical, whatever, if we're even having that conversation. First of all, my hope is that we never have to go down the nuclear path ever again. But also that I'm not sure humans would give AI that trust anytime in the near future, just because that's not what we're trying to do with AI here. So I think he uses an example to create fear, but I'm not sure that that's like the most practical. With that said, I do think that it's a real issue, and I think it's an issue of the ethics of AI and making sure that we are going as slowly as we can, because it's already out of the box, it's the innovation's happening, but we have to be able to build in the safeguards for not a nuclear option, but for more day-to-day options. What happens if someone's chatting with Pi and starts showing suicidal tendencies? And how should Pi respond? We want to make sure it doesn't accidentally say something that would lead this person to go do something that we wouldn't want them to do. For example, most of these systems already have that built in. When that happens, it immediately provides the suicide prevention hotline, and it triggers things. And we've had those systems in place in therapy and mental health for years. So I don't think an AI is just going to get a mind of its own and say, oh, well, why don't you just go do it? But I think that this is where the fear comes in. And when people don't understand the technology and aren't looking at it as deeply, they get a little more fearful about edge case, low probability scenarios. I think what the insiders like Elon and Sam Altman willingly went to Congress and said, hey guys, this could be like kind of crazy.
Right.
We need to
Right.
start regulating it, right? Because just at full scale, you can't control all the elements. So yeah, I do think a lot has to be done. In my field, what I'm focused on is investing in the ones that are creating positive impact. And then I work with my counterparts that are deeper on the legal and ethical side of it, and supporting them in focusing on, how to make sure that from a regulatory standpoint, from an ethics standpoint, from a standard standpoint, that we're protecting ourselves.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for your answer, George. Very, very interesting. I would like to end with you explaining a little bit more about Singularity, where it's leading. Is it linked to Singularity University? What can we learn? All those new elements that we are finishing. Well, we're starting, not finishing. We're starting to see in front of us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so there's a few terms here. So there's AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. It basically means that the computers are getting smarter, and it's starting to be similar to human intelligence. So like if you think about ChatGPT, as smart as it sounds, it's really just predicting statistically what is the next word. So if I say, hey, Eric, meet me at EO conference, meet me at the mall in Florida, like what could I have meant there? And it's predicting based on the vectors, but it's not like it really, really understands. It's just predicting. Now, interestingly, we're learning that that's also how our brain works. If I said, hey, Eric, meet me at, you would just guess based on your body of knowledge, what was my next word going to be? So it's actually not that different. But people say it's not intelligence, it's more statistical prediction. The next step is ASI, artificial superintelligence, which is basically that the capabilities are no longer similar to humans. It's greatly exceeding human intelligence. And there is this ability to rapidly learn, process, and analyze information at an unprecedented scale and speed. So it's very, we would consider it truly intelligent. And then the singularity is, essentially it's way past the human capabilities. So it's even hard to like explain it, but in many ways, it's basically that one AI is smarter than, one system is smarter than all of us put together, all of our brains put together. And that is just incredibly powerful. And therefore, again, people could look at potential negatives of that, but think about the impact of what we could do if we had something like that. That was this one thing that was just so smart and that could help us with whatever we want. Hopefully we could start to solve the biggest, and get to the point where we do solve the biggest global problems like hunger, water, shelter, food, and have everybody having, a reasonable level of standard of living across the planet, all 8 billion plus of us, and then, exploring our passions and purposes and really being able to do work not just to earn a living, but do work that is our highest calling and that is our massively transformative purpose in life. So there's a lot of positive ways that this could go, and I think if we focus and manifest that, it'll be really exciting.
And is Singularity University created in that with that idea in mind?
To a certain extent, yeah. I mean, I think the Ray Kurzweil, who I mentioned, along with Peter Diamandis, who I also mentioned, they were two of the founders of Singularity University. So I think they draw some inspiration and influence from that outcome. But Singularity University it's kind of like executive education and for this kind of exponential thinking and understanding exponential technologies, not necessarily specifically to get to singularity or anything like that.
George, thank you so much. It's been fascinating conversation today. You created Untapped Ventures, your VC fund. So if you can end by telling us a little bit about that fund and how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, that'd be great, Eric. So yeah, I think two things, right? One, we've talked about how we help companies adopt and we have the consulting, but the main thing that we do is we're an early stage venture fund. We invest in AI startups. So everything I've been talking about is because we study and we try to become the best investors we can be, investing in these early stage AI startups that are impacting and uplifting humanity. So we have a great fund. We do some things that are unique. If there's any of your audience are investors, or if they're new to venture, but they'd like to learn more and get access to AI deal flow, we have a community. We meet on a monthly basis. It's kind of like an angel group, kind of like a mastermind, and it's a great opportunity to be part of something good and make hopefully some good returns in the process. So happy to talk to anybody about anything AI related, about how to use it in their company, or if they are interested in joining the fund and have questions. Happy to chat with
and full
anybody.
disclosure, I'm happy to be one of your small investors, and I have no personal interest to share that except sharing your knowledge and inspiring people.
Yes, thank you for being one of our happy investors.
Last thing, how do people get in touch with you?
Sure. So the best is my email. It's george@untapped.ventures. So george@untapped.ventures.
And George without an S.
Correct.
Awesome. George, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, a little bit of your knowledge with us today. Good luck with everything, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Eric. Thanks for having me.
George, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. Wow, it's a fascinating future that we're going to have with AI. Going to completely change the way we do business, and I can't wait to see the impact on our industry. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to connect with me, please go on LinkedIn. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with your network. Thank you. Bye-bye.